So, for this film assignment, I chose to watch Serpico, a 1973 film about Frank Serpico and his role to end the corruption, to try to stop the corruption in the New York Police Department. This is a picture of Frank Serpico speaking to the media. So, for his police work. First, he was a New York City Police Department officer. And he knew very quickly he wanted to become a detective. So he got switched over and transferred to the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, where they had a lot of different things like analyze fingerprints and do things to try to put criminals away, investigate criminals. And then he became a plainclothes officer. So he would go do undercover stuff. He wouldn't be forced to wear a uniform. He would go do whatever and go undercover, basically, and go act like he belongs in these areas to try to catch criminals. So, first, the main source of corruption that I saw in this movie, in this film, was the whole bribery scandal. So, burglars, any criminals, gamblers, any type of criminals would try to bribe the officers off to let them do whatever they want and not arrest them. Well, when they didn't pay them off, they would immediately go arrest them, or when they missed a payment, and they would have to pay $700, $800 a month, and then they would all go to a specific bagman. Then they would go and split the money up and give it to separate it between the officers in their precinct. And so this is obviously against the law. And so Prico realized that it was against the law. And he knew, he was a good officer, he knew right away that he didn't want to deal with unethical proceedings in law enforcement. So he refused to take the money. Then he requested a transfer to a different department, and he spoke to his captain, and his captain sent him to a different department, a different precinct, and said it was even cleaner there. Clean as a hound's tooth, as he put it. However, he got there and realized it was way worse at this new department, and his new job and his new precinct than it was before. So his response to the corruption. So first, when a random police officer came up and gave him envelope of money. So first, he talks to one of his friends' connections over in the investigations department. And he said, really, I suggest just keeping it so you don't have to go through a trial. So he did. But then he took it to his captain and just said, I don't want this, here, take it and deal with it. So then when he goes to the new department, he talks to that same captain and tells him what's going on. And that captain didn't realize that this problem was so widespread as it is. So he tells Serpico just to be patient. He'll go contact the chief's office and the commissioner's office and proceed from there. Well, he said to Serpico that they would reach out to him, but they never reached out, and every time he questioned his captain about it, his captain just said, be patient, calm down, just keep gathering evidence. Well, Serpico was fed up with this, so he went straight to the commissioner himself, but the commissioner didn't have any of it. So then he went to the mayor's office. They didn't want anything to do with the sword either. So then he went to the commissioner, back to the commissioner, and said, look, I'll go to other sources if you don't deal with this. So the commissioner goes, okay, fine, and sends a investigation team to work with Serpico and have Serpico be undercover in his precinct. So Serpico went through his day-to-day things, day-to-day duties, and whenever he occurred something that was bribery, anything like that, he would send it over to, or he would go meet with the investigation team and tell them everything. Well, Then they went to a grand jury proceeding, and Serpico told them everything. And at the end, the jury was asked if they had any questions. And one lady asked why Serpico, why hasn't he came back, he came forward sooner, and why haven't anybody heard of this any sooner? Serpico wanted to answer, but he wasn't allowed to. So he got frustrated and went to the New York Times. And he told them everything. He told them how long it'd been years and years of going on. He told them everything they knew, everything he knew, and he went with his partner in the precinct. So the results. He was beaten by other officers. He was threatened by other officers. And this happened all the time. Every day he could come to work and he wouldn't know what to expect because he basically was expecting to be beat up by his other officers, ridiculed, harassed. And that was just what he had to deal with. And Serpico, well, yeah, it sucked. He kept moving forward and he knew that he was doing the right thing. So he kept working. He didn't care. He just kept working as a police officer. And then he got shot in the line of duty. So the shooting. He was following a lead with 3 other cops. The other cops sent him alone to bust the drug deal because he was the only one that looked like he belonged in this area. So he was just acting like he lived in the apartment complex and tried to bust it. So the people who were buying ran out of the building, and the other 3 officers caught them, chased them down, and so then one of them stayed back with those 3 perps, and the other 3 went inside to get the dealer. Well, so Serpico tried to bust his way into the apartment, and he got in, and when he needed backup, and he begged for backup, but the other officers wouldn't help him, and that's how he got shot, because his backup didn't back him up. So another big thing in this film and in this story is the cop code. And a cop code is unwritten rules for police officers that can vary by department. A main rule in this cop code is don't snitch on fellow officers. Have each other's backs. If somebody asks you, you don't know anything about it. Well, obviously Serpico didn't follow this rule. And so because he broke the cop code, the other officers felt betrayed. And that's what led him getting harassed and beaten. And all these things because they felt betrayed because he didn't follow the rules that he should have followed. And a cop code is usually taught to all rookies, and they expect every rookie to follow it, and Serpico didn't. And yeah, so it typically results in threats and beatings, and this is exactly what happened to Serpico. Other ethical misconduct that I observed in this film. So, in the beginning of this film, we watched Serpico bust 3 black men raping a black female. And so they only catch one of the perps. So they take him back into the precinct, and his sergeant is interrogating him. But his sergeant beats him, and beats him to the point where his face is bruised and bloody. And Serpico wanted nothing to do with it. He refused to lay a hand on this man. And I applaud Serpico for that, because that must have been extremely hard to do when your superior officer is telling you, and he said no. And a really good thing that Serpico did was the next day, he interrogated him, and he followed good interrogation policies. And he got the man to reveal the other 2 men that helped him. And so Serpico was a great officer, did great things in that scenario. Another one, given favors in exchange for things. So this is Serpico's one of his first days on the job. Him and his new partner go to the diner, and the owner gives them free food. So Serpico's questioning that, like, shouldn't we pay it? Shouldn't we pay for our food? Like, that's the right thing to do. We shouldn't get special treatment. And that's when his fellow officer told him that they get free food in exchange for letting him off with double parking when he goes in does deliveries. That's a huge misconduct because you can't exchange favors. That's abuse of power. And then another thing is Serpico was told to stop analyzing fingerprints so hard. He was told that he just make sure you think it's right. And Serpico refused because he knew that he needed to be 100% sure that the fingerprints matched. While his other officers maybe made sure it was like 90% a match. He wanted to make every single thing that he could do to make sure the right criminal was being put in jail. And this was when he was in the Bureau of Criminal Investigations. And another thing that I noticed was cops investigating their own. And towards the end of the film, we see the creation of the Knapp Commission. And that's what should be created. Our own cops, their own cops should not be investigating other cops in the same department. It just doesn't work out. Results. As I said before, the Knapp Commission. And the Knapp Commission is known as the Knapp Commission after its chairman, but it's actually called the Commission to Investigate Alleged Police Corruption. And Serpico played a big part in creating this commission because once the New York Times was released, that article, they jumped at it. They created this commission to make sure that there wasn't any wrongdoing and there wasn't corruption, which they found corruption. They changed the police department in that time. The bribery stopped. Well, we can't say for sure it completely stopped, but for the most part it stopped. And while we do have corruption still today, it changed the corruption for that time period. And it encouraged cops to come forward and encouraged them to be good cops. And after shooting, he was awarded detective, and it was 3rd grade instead of 1st grade that he wanted. But that also meant he got a gold shield instead of just the silver one that patrolmen get. So, I'm going to leave you with this. This is Serpico's speech at the Knapp Commission. Through my appearance here today, I hope that police officers in the future will not experience the same frustration and anxiety that I was subjected to for the past 5 years at the hands of my superiors. Because of my attempt to report corruption, I was made to feel that I had burdened them with an unwanted task. The problem is that the atmosphere does not yet exist in which an honest police officer can act without fear or ridicule or reprisal from fellow officers. Police corruption cannot exist unless it is at least tolerated at higher levels in the department. Therefore, the most important result that can come from these hearings is a conviction by police officers that the department will change. In order to ensure this, an independent permanent investigative body dealing with police corruption, like this commission, is essential. And as far as we know, Serpico is still alive. He moved out of the U.S. after this happened and he retired. But he has come out and did several interviews for like the ACLU and other news and media associations. And that's it about this presentation.